So let's bring in Power the Future founder and executive director, Daniel Turner. Hi, Daniel. So also in this announcement, great to see you. Also in this announcement, President Trump noted that copper is the second most used material by the Department of Defense. So clearly very important for our national security interest. Talk about what these tariffs mean for that and why they're important.
Yeah, we have to remember that two of the largest copper deposits in the world are both in America. One is in Alaska and one is in Minnesota. And the same environmental movement that wants us to go green and stop using fossil fuel also is, fighting to protest to stop those mines from opening. And so there's a huge disparity here. Really, you have to remember, we hide a lot of China protectionism, environmental degradation, child and slave labor that China engages in copper production, and we hide it under this guise of free trade. And so, there's a great conversation to be had about tariffs and whether or not they're effective. But under the guise of free trade and climate change, we have allowed China to dominate really the world's copper mines. You mentioned Chile. A lot of those mines are controlled and owned by China in that country. And so we've allowed China to dominate this market using awful practices that we would never tolerate, and they hide behind climate and free trade to do so, and that has to stop.
Daniel, what's it going to take to bring the mining back home here? We've got the resources, so how do we open it up and how do we get to the point? I mean, the tariff is a step in the right direction, certainly with respect to what we import, but the question is how quickly, you and I talk about all the time with respect to energy, how quickly we can get rigs up and running. How fast can we do this?
Yeah, these two mines, for example, Pebble Mine in Alaska and Twin Metals Mine in Minnesota, they've been waiting for permits for quite frankly, decade. And it's the government that stops them. It's the Biden administration in the last couple of years that did so. So these can get underway really quickly if government would just get out of the way. I think President Trump's executive order on unleashing American energy, declaring an energy emergency, all of those things put the tools in place so that the red tape can get cut and these things can come online. It's still going to take some time. There's no doubt about it. But these tariffs also, they levelize, they equalize the cost. Because again, copper prices are cheap because we are using slave labor and environmental degradation to keep them cheap. And I don't think that is something we should celebrate and call it free trade.
Well, steel prices too, and that's what destroyed the steel industry in this country, and that's why President Trump is trying to revive it. But let's get on to this as well. Weather modification questions in high focus right now following those deadly Texas floods, particularly geoengineering and contrails. Typically taboo in terms of topic for the government, but not EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, who's approaching these concerns head on.
The enthusiasm for experiments that would pump pollutants into the high atmosphere has set off alarm bells here at the Trump EPA. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency. As a result, I tasked my team at EPA to compile a list of everything we know about contrails and geoengineering for the purpose of releasing it to you now publicly.
Daniel, I love the transparency here with EPA Director Zeldin. Obviously this comes as Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced legislation to ban weather modification. So what do you make of sort of this broader conversation that is taking place in the way that Zeldin is responding to it?
Yeah, this transparency is so important. You know that expression that the difference between men and boys is the price of their toys? Add a billionaire to that equation and you get some really crazy experiments. So, for example, Bill Gates 5 years ago launched a SCOPEX, which was the Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation experiment, where he said, and this is all part of his company, that we're going to launch these dust particles into the stratosphere with the purpose of trying to block out the sun for climate change. He can do that because he's got billions of dollars. If a private company tried to do that, they would go through tremendous amounts of environmental regulation and congressional questioning and oversight. But if you're a billionaire, and we see a lot of international billionaires doing this, you're allowed to play these games in space. And, again, under the guise of climate change, launch these companies to do things that we don't know the results of. And so I think the fact that Administrator Zeldin is saying, we have to let you know what has been happening and what the results of it are. The American people, we all breathe the same air. And again, the rigorous oversight fossil fuel industry gets, copper industry, coal gets. It's bizarre that these billionaire class with their little experiments get to tinker with the stratosphere, and we just have to be victims of the results.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Daniel Turner. We appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.